And I would like to welcome all of you to the Stockbridge Library's online poetry series. We are in our second year of weekly poetry readings, and the theme this year is the refuge of witnessing. We certainly have had a lot to witness in the past weeks and the past few years. So I would like to, before I introduce our poet, I want to take a moment to thank the founder and organizer of this program, John Gillespie. John is the former board president of the Stockbridge Library Association. He has since moved to Maine. We miss him very much, but his imprint continues to have a positive effect on the library, and certainly through this poetry series. So John, thank you so much. And we are very lucky to have with us today poet Andrea Deeken. Andrea is a fellow librarian too, so I always have a soft spot. Just a little bit about Andrea, and then we'll get started. Andrea was born in rural Missouri, and her writing has appeared or is forthcoming in several publications: the Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Beyond Queer Words, the Blue Mountain Review, Spoon River Poetry Review, and Valley Voices, among others. She has garnered a few awards, including an honorable mention in the 2019 Spoon River Poetry Review Editor's Prize Contest, and second place in the 2020 Blue Mountain Review LGBTQ chapbook contest. And her debut chapbook, Mother Kingdom, won the 2021 Slavering Hall Press chapbook contest and was published in 2022 by Slavering Hall Press. Very, very happy to welcome in Andrea, who's joining us from Portland, Oregon today, where she lives with her wife and daughter. Andrea, welcome and thank you.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Wendy. It's a good start to today's talk. So, Andrea, let's start with where do you find refuge, or what does that mean to you?
Thank you, John, and thank you, Wendy, and thanks for all of you for joining. I guess when I think about refuge, I think about a place of solace, of course, a place of safety. I grew up in Missouri in a very rural setting on the Osage River in the woods. And I spent a lot of time as a child in the woods with my dogs. And I think I found solace in that space. And I continue to do that. I think when things feel difficult, as the world kind of does in this time. I thought about reading this poem that I love called The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell, but I don't think I could actually get through it without crying. So I think I'm going to not read that, but I recommend everyone checking that poem out. It's called The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell. And, I think it's really important to honor that place of refuge that we seek within us. Sometimes it's as easy as like trying to get enough sleep, trying to drink enough water, trying to be present. I have a third grader, and sometimes there are so many dishes in the sink, but yet she wants my attention, right? And it's like, am I going to be on my deathbed and happy that I did all those dishes, or am I going to be happy that I spent time with my child? Do you know what I mean? So I thought that I would read a poem to start by a poet I love named Marie Howe. This is a book from, it's called What the Living Do. She's actually a poet that I discovered kind of later in life, because when I was younger, I was trying to write fiction, but often had a pretty difficult time with plot, as many young fiction writers do. And actually, my old professor is here, Carol. Hey, Carol. Carol was a great mentor to me in undergrad for fiction writing. And I think my favorite part about fiction writing was writing scenes, and I could almost, kind of get lost in them, and to a point where you can almost go inside an actual moment. And I think that's what I love about poetry, as a way of just really synthesizing the exact feeling of a moment and then broadening it out to the larger space. But Marie Howe has this poem called The Copper Beach, and I thought I would start with that because it talks about refuge in the poem. So it goes like this. Immense, entirely itself, it wore that yard like a dress, with limbs low enough for me to enter it and climb the crooked ladder to where I could lean against the trunk and practice being alone. One day I heard the sound before I saw it. Rain fell, darkening the sidewalk. Sitting close to the center, not very high in the branches, I heard it hitting the high leaves, and I was happy, watching it happen without it happening to me. I love that one. I love that line about how it wore that yard like a dress, because you can just picture it,
Yeah, really great visual on that. So Andrea, before you continue, it's there are no coincidences in life, or that Wendell Berry poem was on the refrigerator of our next door neighbor where we stayed while we're in Stockbridge.
Oh, wow.
I must have read that poem 4 or 5 times, Sunday and Monday. So
Yeah, I always come back to it. Actually, I made a little drawing of it. Well, this is actually something my daughter did when she was younger, and I wrote it out for my my dresser. I think it was a different time, another time of despair. There are so many, so it's a really nice one to come back to, though.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, go ahead.
Should I keep reading?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So I thought I would just read a few poems from my chapbook, Mother Kingdom, which just came out. I'm super excited. It's from Slappering Hall Press. And actually, if there are any poets watching now or will be watching later, their annual contest is currently open. It's going to be open, I think, until June 15th, but don't quote me on that exact date. It's for a couple more weeks. They do beautiful poetry chapbooks. They're, letterpress. They're designed in-house, and I couldn't be more pleased with how it all turned out. So I thought I would just read a couple poems right now that talk about refuge. The first one is called Evolution, and it's so great that my dad and stepmom are here because the poem starts with my father looking for arrowheads, which is something that we used to do when I was a kid. Actually, when I was a kid, I found it very boring because I never actually found any, but my dad would often look for them because there was a field near our house in the woods that after it would get plowed, it was a really good time of year to look for them. So this poem starts with that image. It's called Evolution. Was it when I followed my father to the fields, his back hunched, searching for arrowheads, my feet sinking in the newly turned earth? Or was it seeing my mother from the doorway, her back a waning crescent in the dark? Words came easily to me then, alone with paper, my mind a sweet shadow, time a blanket around my shoulders. But coming out my mouth, they choked and stumbled, my face the crushed color of cherries, stuck to the bottom of a boot. When I told my father I was gay, he was chopping radishes, their red skins half moons on the cutting board, little gleams of white like a promise worth keeping. His careful hands slicing, their rough wintered edges that held so many things, dogs, babies, stones the color of starlight, my wild heart beating the knife's calm rhythm. What can I fix you to eat? My mother was not so easy, her face pinched pale in the thick dark of her bedroom, thin covers a moat of righteous limbs, and I the only sinner. Even now, all these years later, my heart closes when I hear her voice. Today it's cold, but the crocuses are coming up, ochre pollen petals small as thimbles. Soon the geese will head back north, their black wings cutting through soundless cloud.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Wow.
Um,
Wait, did Dad find any arrowheads?
oh yeah. He had a
He
whole
probably had them
case
in the
of them.
pocket and he just, no, only kidding.
He had, yeah, he still has them. Yeah, so I grew up in the woods. I was an only child, and then my parents divorced when I was 13, and then my father remarried when I was 14, and then I got 6 siblings from that marriage. The next poem kind of talks about that. The next poem is called First Kill. So I got three brothers and 3 sisters when I was 14.
There you go.
Yeah.
Going to the grocery store. Let me have a 6-pack.
One of my new siblings was also 14, just like me. And not only that, he was born the same month as me. And it turns out he was born the same week as me. We're only 4 days apart. So in the next poem, it's called First Kill. And we have, it starts because we've found this deer stand. And so I was kind of thinking of it as like the deer stand was a place of refuge, but then also like I was kind of discovering myself in a way, discovering my sexuality for the first time. And I think that was sort of a refuge inside me. So this one's called First Kill. On the inside, the deer stand was surprisingly small, white bucket in the corner, wet sawdust and piss. The thrill of being alone with him, this new brother I had gotten just weeks before, by way of a second marriage, 4 days apart, the two of us, born the same month and year. My father had taken us hunting. Anything could happen. I don't know who saw it first, but soon it was in our hands as we stood side by side, holding the magazine, curling at the edges, all those women, and our eyes on them like magnets. When my father returned with a doe, calling and calling our names, we scampered down the steps, guilty children, our minds already on dinner. Years would pass before I knew the soft rumblings in my body could begin to speak its impossible language. But in the deer stand, the crickets were loud in my ears. The humid air stuck to my skin as I carefully turned the pages. My new brother just inches from my molting body, its pimpled cheeks and long coltish legs, our heads bowed as if in prayer. That night, we dined like kings.
That's great.
Thanks.
Very great. Yeah.
I think I could do one more about refuge, but I don't know. What do you think? Is it time for witnessing yet?
I think, yeah, we're in witnessing overload every minute of the day. So I think part of it is we can allow refuge to have a little more airtime. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I've got one more about refuge. This one is about my daughter. So I think rocks, the love of rocks kind of runs in the family. So my father loves rocks, I love rocks, my daughter loves rocks. When she was about 6, we had read this story about a kid who had gone on a hike and collected rocks with their family, but the rocks were too heavy to bring back with them. So they made these little stacks kind of in the woods to leave. And so my daughter at the time was really obsessed with making stacks of rocks. So in this poem, we are at a river near our house called the Columbia River. And she's looking for stacks of the perfect rock to stack, but then is upset because we can't find them. But it kind of, it goes back to just like finding refuge in nature. So this one's called We Carry Stones with Seasons Inside Them. Newly 6, my daughter fills her fists with rocks to stack from the bruised edge of the Columbia, just north of our house in the city. She squints and stomps like a displeased general. Everything has gone wrong. The wind and water stretch around us, a large lumbering animal rubbing its eyes. It will be fall in a few weeks. Mama, they are too small, she says, not flat enough for the fierce towers in her mind. Her legs blur as she charges ahead. Soon she is on to the next item of business, but I'm left searching. How much she starts that I take on as my own, what motherhood is, the push and pull of waves at the shore. I pocket those that call to me, mostly smooth ones, giving me a kind of peace, probably the closest thing to prayer I've ever felt. River rock to skin. We walk to the top of the boat ramp, jagged concrete ridges reminding me of the time when I was 7 or 8 and played hide and seek with the summer people, a half mile from our house on the Osage. I don't remember if I was it when I fell, slicing my knee on those steep steps, blood caught in the grooves. I looked for a boat full of people, coolers and catfish, tackle hanging off the sides. Instead, there was only murky water, bloated bugs, and old beer cans. My blood. Someone's cousin carried me all the way, running toward our cabin at the end of the tree-lined gravel. Windows dark, the dogs barking. It's bad. You're gonna need stitches. My sweaty hands held his neck. Already shrinking into myself, I shrugged it off. A summer blossom closing at dusk. At the hospital, they gave me 6 stitches. The boy had been right. It was my body, and I was the last to know.
Wow. Woo.
Thanks.
So for Mary and Jack and Carol, we have a little Q&A session this year. We like to have time for the audience to interact with the poet, comments or questions. So I'm going to see if anybody wants to unmute, ask a question. As I always say, don't let the poet off easy, Donna. Don't let her squirm away. Yeah. Let's see. Wait, I don't know. Mary's going for the volume. Watch out. Here we go.
Actually, it is kind of a question, but it's more of a statement. When I look back, that must have been a hellacious experience for you to go from a solitary life with your mom and dad to a hugely chaotic life with your dad and me and the 6 other kids and the 3 that were to come, and living in a different environment. And I'm quite afraid I didn't appreciate that so much at the time. And I guess I just want to say I apologize for not being more there for you at that time. But I could also say that to all the other kids. It was just a real chaotic time, and I hope you made it through okay.
That's really sweet. Yeah, I think I'm doing fine.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And
All right.
poetry is interesting because it's like it starts from personal experience, but then it's almost like you become a character. Do you know what I mean? And so I think what I try to do with my poetry is start with my own experience, but then kind of zoom out to the larger world, because a lot of things can be I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're in this time of transformation right now, like as a culture, as a world. And I think it starts with personal experience and like in connection, and just being authentic. But yeah, you guys are great. I love you guys. Thanks for being here.
All right, thanks.
So Andrea, is Mary your natural mother?
Mary's my stepmother.
Okay. And Jack is,
My father.
okay. I got, the family tree already has like 17 branches, so I'm trying to gather it around like the rocks. So
The best part of all of this, well, besides all the kids, they really enjoy each other. From the youngest, Chris is now 22. Their political and social opinions are pretty diverse, but they stay in contact almost daily, all of them. I mean, they really enjoy each other's company. So that's a good thing. Actually, Andrea and has an older sister, or I guess stepsister, where they all were raised in our house. They didn't go to the other people's houses. There was a little bit of rivalry there, but now they're really close. Both of you fire kind of sideways at times. I guess that's why it is. But yeah, you two are pretty close. No, she turned out all right. I'm happy with her. That radish incident, I was so nervous. I thought it was something bad. I knew something was bad in her head. I thought, God, is she sick? Is she pregnant? What are we going to do? I mean,
oh boy.
I mean, when you said she liked girls, I said, whoa, what a relief. So
Oh boy. I think Wendy will recount, we had a poet on it. The poet read 7 poems about her family specifically. Yeah, that was yeah. That was a little more intense. This one's really great. Stories are fantastic. It's really, really great. Donna, did you have any comments or questions or?
I actually have been struggling myself with should I go back into my life because certain things remind me of the past, or is it better? Well, not better. I'm not sure about going back, and if that comes off sometimes as self-indulgent. Or, I mean, your pieces were really beautiful because you brought in a lot of other people. Mine would be pretty solitary. So I have a hard time with that. Do you ever struggle with that?
I mean, sometimes I feel like, I don't want to ever come across as like self-indulgent, you know what I mean? But I think for me, I didn't actually know you could just write poems about your life until I read poets like Marie Howe and Sharon Olds, and they were just so open. And there's that, I'm going to butcher this quote, but there's that quote from Emily Dickinson about how she knew it was a good poem if like the top of her head was coming off. And for me, it's just I get chills in my body, and I think that I've always just really connected with personal experience, no matter what I'm reading, if it's poetry or if it's like a first person narrative or even nonfiction or memoir. And I think for sometimes I just have to, I'll think of something and a personal experience or an idea, and I kind of just have to let it sit for a while. So I have like little nuggets that just have to sit, and then sometimes something else will remind me of that pertains to sort of like the larger culture or world, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think there's lots of ways to connect them, to make them just less only about yourself. But to be honest, I kind of love reading books like that too, because I feel like overall we're all just trying to connect with each other, especially if you're trying to understand a different point of view. You know what I mean? So I say go for it. Just write it and see what happens.
Okay.
Sometimes it just sort of takes a mind of its own. Like, I don't even know. Sometimes it's like, did I write this? Like, where did it even come from? Do you know what I mean? Has it been just like in my subconscious for 42 years?
Right. I also wanted to say Piece of Wild Things and What the Living Do are my 2 top favorite poems. What the Living Do is especially beautiful about her brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
Thank
agree.
you, Andrea.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our second topic, which is witnessing. Yeah, Andrea, you should unmute. So,
Right. Sorry.
yeah, what is, I usually start this, I don't know, I feel like I'm just in witnessing overload. I know we talked earlier, Yeah, I read the New York Times, the Boston Globe, usually the Wall Street Journal, the Portland Press Herald. Obviously, Wendy, I have too much spare time. I should be doing other stuff like going for a walk. But yeah, a lot of the news is the same, but it's like too much. It's almost like it's bombarding me, bouncing off of me because I can't absorb anymore.
Mhm.
I just can't. It's too much. So I wanted to get your sense. What is witnessing, mean to you?
I mean, I think, in light of what you're talking about, I think it is important to just be present with, even if it hurts, just to try to be present with all the pain in the world, but not to the point of complacency. And I don't think that it really matters what side of the political spectrum you're on. I think like ultimately we all want to feel connected and we all want to feel safe. We all want to feel loved. And I think that one way of witnessing that I try to do is just to be present with people, and to sort of just, sit with other people's pain and be in solidarity with pain in different ways. And but not to the point of complacency and not to the point of being numb to it, because I feel like when tragedies happen and when they happen in succession, it's easy to just turn your brain off and just think, well, that's just how it is. But I feel like we're in this time of transformation culturally, and I think it's just up to us what we want the future to look like. But I think for witnessing too, it kind of starts with, for me, it starts with myself. Like how do I be a witness to myself in terms of being authentically who I am and not being afraid to be who I am, in spite of what other people might think of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I have some conservative family members who we don't see eye to eye. I haven't always felt completely accepted by them because of my queerness and because of being gay. So like, I think the ultimate witnessing to me that feels the most powerful is just to be authentically yourself, especially as a woman, taking up space, and because ultimately we have one life, and why live your life for other people? Do you know what I mean?
No, fantastic. I think no, I think everyone has a different interpretation. I think for me is sometimes there's this just veil of sadness, and I have to remind myself of, the sun's still coming up, all the good things that are going on in the world. And yeah.
I think it goes back to presence too. And then I think in some ways, like a poet's job is to sort of, it's to sort of bring light, both the pain and the beauty of the world. Those little moments that oftentimes they're intertwined, oftentimes they're very fleeting. I was going to actually read a Sharon Olds poem to start that section because I think she does that really well.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is from her book. It's a collection. It's called Strike Sparks, and her selected poems from 1980 to 2002. But the poem I'm going to read is called 35/10. So the speaker is 35 and her daughter is 10. And so this book that poem is from a book called The Dead and the Living. And this poem I thought was just so beautiful. I think it goes back to just bearing witness to a moment. So it's called 35/10. Brushing out our daughter's brown silken hair before the mirror, I see the gray gleaming on my head, the silver-haired servant behind her. Why is it, just as we begin to go, they begin to arrive, the fold in my neck clarifying as the fine bones of her hips sharpen? As my skin shows its dry pitting, she opens like a moist, precise flower on the tip of a cactus. As my last chances to bear a child are falling through my body, the duds among them. Her full purse of eggs, round and firm as hard-boiled yolks, is about to snap its clasp. I brush her tangled, fragrant hair at bedtime. It's an old story, the oldest we have on our planet, the story of replacement.
Very nice.
Oh, I love her so much.
Yeah, Sharon Knowles is the Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame on that. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, I think the caffeine's helping you today. It's only what? It's only
It's
what?
really the only way that I
9:30.
can, caffeine is the only way that I can be a parent. Let me tell you.
Wait, I like that. That's, is there a poem coming out of that? Caffeine's the only way I can be a parent. I love it.
It's true. Well, that kind of ties into a poem I could read. There's a poem I wrote called Borscht, and it's kind of it's about a time when my wife and I were trying to have another child, and we were waiting to find out if that was going to happen or not. And at the same time, I had there were two sisters in my life, one sister who had just had a baby and one sister who had chosen not to have a baby. And I was making this soup for them, and that's kind of where it starts. Let's see, what page is it on? It's called Borscht. Bear with me here. Okay. The morning I thought I'd be a mother again, I made soup for two sisters, one with a new baby, bright as a beet, the other with an empty womb. Both left sleeping in twin beds, two tired uteruses needing the same soup I'd eaten years before when my own daughter was born. Soup so red it stained the stove, its sharp stock simmering all day. Beets, beef, viscous pork. At 39, I'm surprised to learn I've reached the stage of death, watching it in mirrored hallways, seeing its shadow on my father's face. Friends, when we meet for coffee, talk only of the body, how a mother's morning walk turned into terrible brain blossoms, fat sirens spinning. A lover's stomach taken by tumors, thin lips sucking lime popsicles. It's been a year since I waited, a year since I named the bundle of cells I swore I could see growing into someone I had met before. And when the blood did come, it was as if proof of sins were smeared on my broken body, rendered visible by time's tired ink. You still ask for a brother, but it gets fuzzier each time, as if we are speaking underwater. I research dogs. I set up a fish tank and bury them one by one under the same front pine, glinting tails winking out in the black dirt, cold, faded starlight. I still see the sisters, but I don't make borscht anymore. So many ways to be a mother, even to oneself. When I tuck you in at night among the mountain of stuffed animals, lovingly arranged, you say, "Tell me a story about when you were a kid." You want all of me, even in sleep. But how to tell you my fear? I've run out of stories, my mind already failing, as if my body is trying to protect me from something it cannot name.
Woo. Oh boy. I think I got to tighten my seatbelt here for the last 20 minutes. I don't know. No, very good.
Oh, thanks.
Just very
Let's
authentic.
see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got plenty of time. Plenty of
Okay,
time.
I'm just trying to think. I might pivot. I was going to read another poem, but there's one that I like. It's called My Worry, and I think like sometimes there's just so much to worry about in the world, and I feel like that I almost want to be witness to that part of myself, to just not let it get too big. And I often worry the most when we go to the ocean. I think it's because having a kid, you know, that it's like that quote about when you have a child, it's like your heart is forever outside of your body. I feel that way when I go to the ocean with my daughter. So this one's called My Worry. My worry is a yarn ball tangled under the bed, is broken glass beneath my tires as I'm biking home, is a piece of popcorn I've been working all day stuck between a pocket of tooth and gum. My worry is a wave watching me walk the shore, collecting stones and shells while my daughter runs ahead. From here, she is so small, I can fit her whole body between two fingers. My worry takes root beneath my very house, is there when the shit comes spilling out of the toilet as I'm taking a shower. My worry is a friend I see on the street walking home. I raise my hand in greeting, but she does not see me. Okay, I've got one more. This one, so I went to Catholic school, and it was customary at my high school for your senior year, you would go on a retreat called Teens Encounter Christ. And this poem, I think I wanted to choose it because it goes back to kind of like bearing witness to myself. This was at a time where I was trying to figure out my sexuality, but because there weren't a lot of examples then, this was like the, late 90s. I didn't understand what it was. And so I came back from this retreat, in the poem just sort of filled with the Holy Spirit. But then I think maybe I was in love with my counselor. So this one, this is the last one I'm going to read about witnessing. It's called Before Girls, There Was God. And it starts with my cutting grass with my father, which I would do in the summertime. When I was young, I'd ask my father to go to work with him. Sweaty Missouri summers, Mountain Dew and Junior Mints, cutting grass at the city cemetery. He put me on a riding mower at 10. I had it precisely mapped out. 3 passes for each row. My skinny legs stuck to the hot black seat. The blade lined up just so to get close enough to the graves without scraping the sides. At 17, I got religion. For 3 days, Catholic girls in sleeping bags held hands, our Bibles tucked lovingly between us. My mother's idea, a retreat will do you good. All the girls were going. I didn't think much of it, just another chore, until I saw her that first night. Darla, the counselor in college, a gold cross nestled in the hollow of her neck, kissed tan with summer. She smelled like coconut lotion and juicy fruit, the clove cigarettes she'd sneak at lunch. When she smiled at me, I felt saved. I came back from that weekend filled with the Holy Spirit, thinking of her taut calves, the tiny blonde hairs just above her knees, the way she said my name. On the mower, it was always 1 pass on the left side, the same thing on the right, my father coming behind me with the string trimmer to get the grass just right between the graves, all the edges I'd missed. He sliced through those blades of stinging July grass like they were silk. But it was the 3rd pass, the last pass, that was my favorite. I called it the middle. I'd floor the motor as fast as it could go, riding on top of those sun-setting souls bound by the old law. I was still alive, flying free.
No, fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was the board chair for 3 years, a treasurer for 3 years for a historic congressional cemetery in DC, Washington, DC. And yeah, the mowing and the grave maintenance. Yeah, it's a whole, when you go inside the gates, it's a whole nother world. Actually, the outside world doesn't exist once you're inside the gates.
Mhm.
So no, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think the people that we had those stand-up mowers. They like stand up on stuff. They were almost like upright go-karts, and they'd be.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah,
saying
I
to
think my
myself,
dad had one of those too.
yeah. So let's take another comment or Q&A time. I think I'll tell you one of the things that I'm going to find it here. What is it? The poem, I heard the bells on Christmas Day. And why can't I find it? Let's see. Yeah, one of the quotes. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Whenever I read that line, I just feel like, whew, at some point, it's all going to work out. I just hope I'm around to see it. So, anybody have any questions? Perry, you're abnormally quiet today. I know you're in absorption mode. Now, Perry almost comes to every week. Perry and Donna will.
Really enjoying the poems. They're so great. How you take an object and then make a bigger story out of it is just so good. So I'm glad you didn't say I was being abnormal today, because you said
No. Normally you're
quiet.
no. Normally you have if you throw a comment or question. No, I just felt like you're right. The poetry is very, very.
It's real, yes,
Yeah.
it's really engaging. I don't know, maybe you could talk a minute about your writing process. We all have our own, and I won't bore you with mine because mine's changed over the years. But how do you start? How do you begin?
Yeah, thank you. So that's something that for the longest time, I was always trying to find the perfect writing process where, I tried to get up early in the morning. I tried to write late at night. It's a lot harder now that I have a kiddo. But I've kind of just stopped worrying about it. And the thing that works best for me is the second that I think of an idea for a poem or a line for a poem, I have to write it down because it will leave me. And I think for the longest time I would say, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that. And then it would be gone. So I'm trying to figure out a more sort of consistent practice because I do want to work on poems for a full length. I'm actually in this series right now called Writer to Writer with the poet Alexa Duran. Hey, Alexa, which is great because it's all about being mentored by a poet in different ways. And so, in answer to your question, I don't really know. I mean, with poetry, I've always kept a journal since I was about 17, and I sometimes when I figured out that I could write poems, I was like, oh, I should look at my journals. And so I often will find beginnings of poems there. One thing I do a lot is when I'm at work, I work at the library. I'm a library assistant, and I feel like I'm always getting ideas at work. And so my pockets are just filled with scraps of paper, and I probably should be more organized, but I'm trying to figure out the exact process. But so, yeah, I guess in answer to your question, I don't really have a process. I just try to when I feel inspired, I try to immediately write that thing down. And then I usually let it sit for a while and go back to it later. But sometimes I feel like I'll never write another poem again. And I'm like, well, that was it. I have a chapbook. Okay. And then and then another idea will just come to me. So I think a lot of it is just being patient with yourself
Yeah.
and trying not to compare yourself to other people so much,
Mhm.
and staying off social media after
Oh,
like
that's easy
7
for
p.m.
me.
I try to stay off the internet after 7 or 8 o'clock at night because it just messes with my head.
So
answer.
Carol Spalding put in the chat, do you think poetry can save us? Could you read Poem to My Daughter on the day they announced the end of the world?
Oh, that's so funny, Carol. I was going to read that one and I read My Worry instead. I mean, I hope poetry can save us. I don't know. I think it really goes back to just personal connection, right? And just the feeling of not being alone. I could read that if we have a second. It's not that long. What do you think, John?
Do it.
Okay. This
We got
one,
12 minutes. We got 12 minutes. Do it.
okay. This one is kind of about climate change. And it's just that idea of you're doing something innocuous like making food, and then there'll just be like a little thing on the radio about how the oceans are a lot warmer than we thought. I hope poetry can save us. I think it's a way of beginning the conversation anyway, but anyway, this one's called Poem for My Daughter on the Day They Announced the End of the World. The radio said there had been a mistake. The oceans, in fact, are 60% warmer than we thought. I am cutting broccoli to put in a pot to boil. Quickly, because I have to leave to pick you up from school, to take you to the dentist, where they will examine your tiny teeth, smooth white chiclets, small as my pinky nail, and later there won't be time. There is never enough time. The laundry remains unfolded days after it comes out of the dryer. Weeds grow through the bark chips, dandelion seeds you wildly blow. No matter how I try, I can never get to the root. You can count to 60 in 2 languages. This morning at breakfast, 16, 17, 18. Mama, are you listening? Now the pot nearly boils over, catching the thin skin of my wrist. Bloom of pain petal, sink pollen, the crust of the oatmeal bowl. It seems the earth is more sensitive to climate than we realized. I know it's time to go. 5 minutes till the last bell. You'll be left too long, and I can't bear the thought of you waiting.
Nice. Very nice.
Thanks.
So what are you working on assembling another book, or is that in the future somewhere?
Well, I'd like to do a full length. So the chapbook is just about 20 pages or so. So my next goal is a full length, and I think you need about, I don't know, is it like 80 pages for a full length? My idea is to sort of expand on the themes of Mother Kingdom, which are kind of about identity and queerness and motherhood, but also expanding it to talk about kind of like Mother Earth and our collective mothering that we all need. It's still, it's in the very beginning process. So that is my next goal. And then, yeah, just trying to, connect with other writers and keep reading great poetry. There's so much great poetry out there right now. So that's where I'm at.
I know. I am the beneficiary of a weekly infusion. So it really is fantastic. Other people say, why do you do it? I said, it's like I can't not do it. So
Yeah.
So we got about 9 minutes left. Are there any more poems? Is there another, I saw Marie Howe live at Kripalu along with David White live a few times.
Oh, wow.
At Kripalu. So, but Marie Howe, I have some notes somewhere. She talked about her creative process, and I think there are 30 people in the room. There wasn't a sound. Everyone was just spellbound with how she was doing things. The David White stuff was, 300, 350 people in a big room. And that itself was, amazing. Well, I think Poetry Live is amazing itself. So
Definitely. Well, I could read her poem that someone mentioned, What the Living Do, which is also one of my favorite poems. I think Marie Howe does such a great job just taking very sort of innocuous moments and just making them feel so powerful and connecting to all of us, So I'm sure you all have heard this poem before, but I'll read it because it's so great. Oh, I love her so much. Okay. What the Living Do. Johnny, the kitchen sink has been clogged for days. Some utensil probably fell down there, and the Drano won't work, but smells dangerous, and the crusty dishes have piled up. Waiting for the plumber, I still haven't called. This is the everyday we spoke of. It's winter again. The sky's a deep, headstrong blue, and the sunlight pours through the open living room windows because the heat's on too high in here, and I can't turn it off. For weeks now, driving or dropping a bag of groceries in the street, the bag breaking, I've been thinking, this is what the living do. And yesterday, hurrying along those wobbly bricks on the Cambridge sidewalk, spilling my coffee down my wrist and sleeve, I thought it again and again later when buying a hairbrush. This is it. Parking, slamming the car door shut in the cold. What you called that yearning. What you finally gave up. We want the spring to come and the winter to pass. We want whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. We want more and more and then more of it. But there are moments walking when I catch a glimpse of myself in the window glass, say the window of the corner video store, and I'm gripped by a cherishing so deep for my own blowing hair, chapped face, and unbuttoned coat that I'm speechless. I am living. I remember you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would love to see her live. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
Yeah. Yep. No.
Someday.
No. So, could you close us out maybe with one more of your poems, if that works for you?
Oh, sure. Let's see.
I mean, I always make a joke. We got to finish by midnight, so we have about 11 hours to go. So you're gonna have to get your journal out. You're gonna have to read your journal. Only kidding.
Oh gosh, you don't want to hear that. What's a good one to end on? Let me think. Well, I do have one about bunnies. It is springtime. This one is about finding a bunny's nest in my yard a few years ago. I'm not sure if you've ever found a bunny's nest, but it's pretty interesting. They are completely flush with the ground. And so you don't know they're there unless usually you see cats. That's like the indication that there's maybe one there, but you can't tell that they're there. And what's interesting is the mother rabbit only comes, I think, once in the morning and then once at night in order to not draw attention to the nest. And they're just basically, sleeping right under the surface. So this is a poem about finding a bunny nest. Okay, Wild Spring. Thank you, this has been so fun. Okay. 2 nights ago, my daughter, fresh from the bath, that twilight sort of quiet, I see our neighbor's cat nosing around my raspberries, just starting to grow. Open the screen door to shoo him, but he stares a dare. So I put on my shoes. I've touched him twice in 5 years, so skittish. But now here in the garden, he sits right next to me, I start to peel back pine needles, tucked between rows of radish and sumac, tufts of milky white fur, covering the soft ground, a wild nest of baby bunnies. The cat went home that first night, but all the next day there were others. Cats the color of orange and cream, cats with dark gray stripes down their legs, leading to claws. Cats I had never seen before, skulking like thieves in my garden. I yell at them from my kitchen window, a mother sick of giving chances, ready to run out, but unable to turn away. I borrow a wildlife book from the library. It says to wait. The bunnies will be gone in a few weeks. It says I will never see the mother. It says she'll come only in the morning and once in the early evening to nurse her kits. Her milk is rich enough to last all day. By mid-afternoon, the second day, I had already saved 2 babies from the claws of cats, their eyes still sealed shut. I felt crazed. I placed a child's chair over the nest before I went to sleep. I worried the mother could not reach them. There was a space just large enough for her to crawl under. I measured and remeasured that space in my head. The next morning, all was quiet. I got my daughter ready. I wanted to leave the nest alone, give them a little peace, but there, a hole where the nest had been, dug right under the chair. One body in the grass, no cats in sight. All that day at work, I kept thinking about the mother, her nipples full of milk, looking for relief, her babies strewn like leaves in the street. My own daughter blocks away, learning the sounds letters make in another language, and later blowing dandelions into the wind.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for an amazing hour.
Thank you so much.
Just Mary and Jack, thank you for being here. And, Carol and Alexa, Perry and Donna, I think we got everything here. We got family, we got some poets, we have some teachers, mentors. Obviously, I'm the manager of Chaos and Humor, so that's good. Wendy's at the library. No, absolutely. Yeah. Wendy had basically like for that, your whole hour. So Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been really wonderful. Thank you for this amazing series that you're doing.
Oh.
And thanks everybody for coming. This has been great.
It was so
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing
Okay.
your talent with us. Much appreciated. Your work is really wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye,
Andrea and
everyone.
John.
All right.
See you in
Bye-bye.
August.
Yeah,
Bye.
see you.